Welcome to Crazy Nurse RN Hub, where learning becomes a tradition. Come, join me as we explore the multifaceted world of nursing.
Hi there, students. My name is Criselmer Docanes, and I am your research instructor. For today's topic, we have the solving for sample size. The size of a sample is usually determined before the conduct of any study. There are no fixed rules in determining the size of a sample needed. However, there are broad guidelines that should be observed in determining the size of a sample. Among these guidelines are: when the universe or population is more or less homogeneous and only the typical, normal, or average is desired to be known, a smaller sample is enough. However, if differences are desired to be known, a larger sample is needed. Another one is when the population is more or less heterogeneous and only the typical normal or average is desired to be known, a larger sample is needed. However, if only their differences are desired to be known, a smaller sample is sufficient. The size of a sample varies inversely as the size of the population. A larger proportion is required of a smaller population, and a smaller proportion may do for a bigger population. For a proportion of 5,000, a sample of 10% may do, but for a population of 500, a proportion of 30% may be required. For a greater accuracy and reliability of results, a greater sample is desirable. In biological and chemical experiments, such as testing the effects of drugs and other substances, the use of a fewer persons is more desirable to determine the reactions of humans to such drugs and other substances being tested. When the subject or the sample are likely to be destroyed during the experiment, it is more feasible to use non-humans, such as animals, especially rats. Now let's proceed to the steps in computing the size of a sample. First, we have determine the size of the study population. This is easily determined from the scope and delimitation of the study. Second, decide on the margin of error. As much as possible, the margin of error should not be higher than 5%. Probably 3% is an ideal one. Next is to use Sloven's formula, which is the sample size equals to the population size over 1 plus the population size multiplied by the margin of error. That is represented by your letter E squared. Next is if the sample is multi-stage or if the population is stratified, compute the sample proportion or percent by dividing the result in step 3 by the population. Next is you have to multiply the number of sampling units in each final sampling stratum by the rate or the percent to find the sample from each final sampling stratum, and add the samples from all the final sampling strata to find the total sample. So let's have a sample exercise. Suppose an investigation of the teaching of science in high schools of a region is to be conducted, in which the science teachers are the respondents. There are 2,243 teachers handling biological sciences, 1,406 handling chemical sciences, and 992 teachers handling physical sciences, and a total of 4,641 teachers. Now let's proceed to the sampling procedure. First is to determine the population, which is 4,641. Next is to determine the margin of error to be used, which is 3%. And we need to use the Sloven's formula. That is n equals n over 1 plus n e squared. So we have to substitute the values given from the scenario. Sample size equals 4,641 divided by 1 plus 4,641 multiplied by the squared of 0.03. 0.03 is your 3% margin of errors. So you have to multiply it and get the sample size. The sample size is 896.4825. This may be rounded to 900 for convenience of computation. So we could have 900 as the sample size. Then for step 4, the teachers are grouped into 3 categories according to the branch of science they are handling. So we use stratified sampling. So we have here a formula, sample proportion, that's in percentage, equals sample size divided by the population size. So we substitute the values. We have 900 over 4,641. So the sample proportion or the percentage is 0.1939. This may be rounded off to 0.20 or 20% for convenience of computation. Next, we proceed to step 5 and 6. So we have here categories, the number, which is the population size of each category, the percentage, and the sample size. So for biological sciences, we have 2,243. That is multiplied by 0.20, which is the 20%, and the answer is 449. That means we will get 449 as the sample size from biological sciences teachers. Next, we have chemical sciences. We have 1,406 multiplied by 0.20. Then the sample size is 281. So that means we will get 281 as the sample size from the chemical sciences teachers. And lastly, we have physical sciences. We have 992 multiplied by 0.20. Then the answer is 198, which is our sample size. So we will get 198 from the physical sciences teachers. That would comprise a total of 928 as our sample size. So if you try to notice, when we computed for the Sloven's formula, we only have 900 sample size. But when we computed for the stratified sampling, we generated 928. So that could be possibly used for this computation, since we use 20% as our sample proportion for each categories. I believe that ends our lecture on solving the sample size. If you think this lecture video helped you, you may hit the like and share button and spread good vibes. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more informative and interesting lecture videos. This has been Crazy Nurse RN. Have a nice day and see you in my next lecture videos. Goodbye!